Today we're joined by one of the sharpest minds in OCE Rocket League coaching, Lachlan Parker. You may know him as LBP. So LBP's helped teams like Renegades, Elevate, and the Chiefs score regional wins. He's also started Mindclickers and pushed the use of sports science in esports, really changing how the game's played mentally and strategically in OCE. So let's dive deep into his journey and hear his take on the future of OCE Rocket League.
Pleasure to be on. I've got a podcast myself, so I'm more than happy to return the favor in terms of, creating content for OCE. I think as a region, we need content, we need insights, and I guess, providing a bit of insight to the mind of people at the top is always good.
Let's dive straight into the questions. We're going to start off with a little bit about your personal background and your path into esports. You come from a sport and exercise science and rehabilitation counselling background. What inspired you to apply those disciplines into Rocket League esports?
Yeah, so initially I've always been playing games since forever, right? Since growing up, Xbox, early PC days, COD 4, Modern Warfare 2. Really been such a valor in those sort of areas, which has been awesome. I think it was when I hit Grandmaster in StarCraft 2, it was like, okay, I've been sort of learning so much about games, but also more about the traditional sports and I guess developing in terms of sports science. How can I create an intersection between the two? It was sort of that passion that I sort of developed over time, which allowed me to sort of understand, hey, as a region OCE, there isn't too much going on at the moment. We look to NA, we look to EU, there's so much developing in terms of esports, in terms of programs, in terms of coaching as well. So it was really up to me to think about, I guess, how can I have an impact in Australia and in a region that I love so much and want to develop and push the boundaries of, I guess, esports performance as well.
So how did your journey begin in Rocket League coaching?
Bit of an interesting backstory. So at the time, it was halfway through my postgrad of rehab counselling. I was sort of getting into sort of having a look at a bit of esports research and potentially looking at that pathway. At the time, Daniel Bonner was working with Ground Zero as their sleep psychologist. So doing a bit of performance with those guys at the time back in 2021. And CJ reached out to Dan Bonner and said, hey, we're looking for a bit of performance. Can you help us out? Daniel said, hands a bit full at the moment, but here's this guy called LBP. So I've had a first chat with CJ and I said, CJ, I've got 50 hours on Rocket League. I honestly don't know how much we can help you in the game, but what I can do is I can help you outside the game, which will then translate to your in-game performance. And he was like, all right, let's just take a stab of it. So I came on board with him, I think it was on a Friday, and they had a regional on that weekend. And then we won the regional, which was pretty cool.
Amazing.
And then, sort of that allowed me to, I guess, flourish into Renegades, step up into head of performance. So working with, I think, 5-6 different teams of Renegades, doing really well with them, going to regionals, attending regionals, going to majors, going to my first Worlds in Dallas. I think that was, pretty much that catapult, which allowed me to jump into all the other roles. And the rest is pretty much history.
Throughout the interview, I asked LBP some random personal questions that may have thrown him off just a little. What's a totally useless skill that you have that you're secretly proud of?
Oh, this is on the spot, isn't it? I'm pretty good at skipping stones. I can get like a good 6 or 7. But pretty useless in grand scheme of things. But
You've led teams to OCE regional titles and APAC Cup victories. How does coaching in OCE compare to other regions like APAC in terms of competitive level and approach?
Yeah, for sure. So I think contrasting back to Renegades days, realistically, we were scrimming 2 times a night, even sometimes 3 times a night. So it was pretty full on in terms of what we were looking at doing. Comparing that to APAC, when I went and joined Kami over in APAC, Kami realised and Vert under James Cheese, then gradually pushing into Elevate. At the time, I think they were doing maybe 1 scrim a day, potentially even 2, but it wasn't definitely a solid 2 every day. So there was a little bit of a dynamic contrast in terms of, I guess, top level scrim availabilities. I think at the time, Game and Gladiators was the top of the region alongside those boys. So they pretty much had those 2, one team to scrim with constantly. But then me jumping on board, I opened it up in terms of, I guess, providing more scrims to some of the lower teams, the top 8 teams, the top 12 teams, top 16 teams, just so we have a little bit of variability with those teams. But definitely comparing to OCE, there probably was a little bit more higher level, I guess, skilled individuals. Probably at the top, at the time there was KCP, all of those boys, Ground Zero. So a lot more individuals within OCE that, I guess, could make a pretty big impact at the international scale. But going to APAC and I guess giving opportunities to some of those top 8 teams allowed me to understand the depth of the region, which I think created a bit more of that, I guess, initial, okay, here we go, we might be onto something here, which in grand scheme really, I guess, created a bit of excitement because eventually prior to the Boston major, we boot camped in Japan for, I think it was 8 weeks. And that was a bit of a different contrast compared to Renegades, because Renegades, primarily, we only scrimmed at home, so we're all online. Whereas for the first time ever, I was able to sort of have a purely set scrim schedule over 8 weeks in person. So we were gelling together in person, we'd eat lunch, we'd go scrim, we'd go to dinner together. So it was a bit more of a different environment, which I think allowed to cultivate a culture which was really embellished within teamwork and I guess bonding, and allowed us to have such good results on the international stage.
So what unique challenges do coaches in the OCE region face, and how do you adapt strategies to overcome them?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is that you could, counting on 2 hands, I could probably list how many coaches there are in OCE. But I think at the top end, we do get a little bit gatekeepy in terms of players, especially. There are so many coaches, I think, that I've had chats to, especially in OCE, who have the knowledge, have the ability to probably foster and develop and build a team to, a really substantial level, but they don't always get the opportunity, which I think is hard because it's about, I guess, breaking down that ability to sort of recognize that, hey, let's give this guy a chance. Let's give this guy a shot, especially from a player perspective. Because there's definitely, I think, looking back to last region or last split, looking back a couple months now, you go to Wikipedia page and there's so many teams not even with a coach, right? So I think if some of these players are a little bit more open towards having a coach on board, maybe it's not directly for gameplay, but maybe it's for performance, like how I got into the scene. There could be a bit more, different stories starting to happen.
What's the most ridiculous piece of advice you've ever given a player that actually worked?
Just full send it. Just send it. Yeah. I think it was my first major in Sweden. And obviously I was going into it like with so much preparation, I guess individually prepped for, I guess, all the boys, Kami, CJ and Fever. And I knew that Kami's, I guess, pre-game warm-up or pre-stage routine was jumping on Spotify and just blasting techno, blasting hardstyle. And I'm like, just send it. Like, just rip in, just absolutely enjoy the moment. Send as much hardstyle as you want. I think you could barely even hear comms. His music was that loud. We got the upset against the number 1 EU team. So at the end of the day, does it really matter?
Let's talk about performance science and mental health. As the founder of Mindclickers, you focus on the psychological demands of esports. So how do you integrate mental performance strategies into team preparation?
Yeah, for sure. So this could be anything from an external performance perspective, I guess from a broader scale before getting into the mental stuff, such as exercise, sleep, nutrition, supplementation, even looking at caffeine. A lot of players, tend to drink energy drinks or have some sort of coffee. So having a look at that. But I guess from an internal perspective, I guess looking at developing confidence, understanding where players feel confident and how that confidence builds over time, especially prior to LAN. The biggest one that I started to employ was just really strong, vivid visualization techniques prior to LAN, especially for pre-Dallas when we were about to walk up on stage against NRG. In Dallas Arena, NRG, probably 98% of the crowd was going for NRG, and we were like the 2%. Here's our Renegades. So just employing techniques to help the boys, I guess, develop and understand that, hey, the crowd's going to be loud, there's going to be lights, there's going to be so much things that we have to sort of take into account. So using strong, vivid visualizations helps to create the mental state that, hey, I've experienced this situation before, even if I haven't actually experienced it yet. So you're able to sort of elicit that, I guess, feeling that, hey, I can feel confident in this space. I know how to deal in this space. I know what this space feels like. And I'm familiar with that. And I guess that allows you to have that, I guess, underlying level of confidence that's sort of pre-established prior to the event, which really helps to, I guess, create that bit of confidence, allows you to have that bit of an extra percent change, which can, in some games, especially in Rocket League, make the difference between missing an open net and scoring it. So those small micro differences from a mental perspective definitely can make the difference.
Can you share an example of how mental resilience training made a difference during a high-pressure tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. One that sticks out to me is, I think, 2022 LA. There was a major that we attended, and prior to that in Sweden, we swept Furia as Renegades. So going into LA, seeing that we've paired up against Furia, we're like, we got this, boys. We've got this. We've already done it before. Why can't we do it again? Sort of thing. And our first game, I think it was in groups, we got swept by Furia. So I was like, all right, well, maybe, that wasn't the greatest. And then we played NRG, and that was even probably a worse performance that we anticipated as well. So then we had, I think it was the same day, it was day 2. I think we had 30 minutes to sort of debrief before we had to play again. So we had to play back to back after losing to NRG. So I took the boys into the room, I closed the door, and I said, righto boys, what's happening? What do you feel right now? And I guess say everything on your mind. And giving them the opportunity to sort of speak, I guess, openly and I guess, you know, heart to heart, sort of have that conversation, which sometimes, you know, obviously guys, it's pretty difficult to do sometimes. So really breaking that down and I guess allowing the guys to speak and see things how they saw it was really important for that sort of understanding about what can we do going into the next series. We had a bit of a discussion. I pulled out one of my infamous speeches for the guys, and I just, in short term, basically said, in 3 days, we're going to leave the hotel. You're going to lock your suitcase. You're going to walk out the hotel. You're going to look back, and you're going to see the hotel in the distance. After that, everything's set in stone. You can't go back. You can't make a difference, right? So the next series, just give it your all. Actually put into place what we've been practicing, and leave no regrets on the table. And then, short story, you know, we went out and sweat Furia. Whether it was that specifically or it wasn't exactly what I said, but I think I said something a little bit better. But yeah, I guess being able to create that mental difference between having a proper reset can definitely go a big, long way in terms of helping the boys to sort of regain that confidence and have that motivation to get back out there and put on their best performance.
Okay, so if you had to swap places with any pro player for a day, who's it going to be and why?
Well, it wouldn't be Banana Head because he plays out of a garage, I think. A pro player for the day. Are we talking globally or just OCE?
Let's stick with just OCE.
Okay. Is CJ an option? Does he count?
No, he's retired, but yeah, sure, he counts.
We'll go CJ.
Okay.
I think I would enjoy. I've always been thinking about, you know, obviously primarily I've done a lot of coaching, but you know, what would I be like on the cast? Would I be any good? You know, I've been on Mindclickers. I've done a lot of episodes with pro players, a lot of insights that I've developed over time. I think, I wouldn't mind giving that a crack.
On to the future of OCE Rocket League. Where do you see the region heading in the next few years? Let's say the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I think naturally from a growth perspective, I want to see it develop and flourish and grow and be one of those regions that really does contend on the international level. I think it's obviously been a bit difficult the last couple of majors. OC hasn't had the best results, especially against APAC. So I think it's a bit tricky at this point. I think the next EWC, which is happening in the next couple of days, right? That's going to say a lot, I think, for OCE, especially going into Worlds as well, towards, September or so. I think that will play a big level towards, I guess, what the future of OCE looks like, whether we can still compete on the international scale, which I truly do believe we can. But from a growth perspective, I really do hope that, we can get to that point where we are actively competing, whether that means importing, which obviously we've seen have some ups and downs throughout the years, or one of our players going over to E or NA and actually making a difference and having a bit of that OC representation at a different region could be a good play as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm keen to see what happens and I guess, the storylines to start to elicit. But hopefully we can just continue to grow as a region and have some really good international results just to sort of help validify the fact that OCE still can compete.
All right, so what are your priorities moving forward? Will we see you continuing innovating with Mindclickers or stepping into other different roles within Rocket League?
Yeah, it's a good question. So on Mindclickers, I've had the opportunity to have some really big high-end guests recently. A lot of Counter-Strike pros, a few other gaming pros as well from different games as well to share their insights. As well as a few org CEOs to bring on their perspective about the esports, market and as a whole at the moment. So I'm definitely going to be in the forefront pushing that out. But I think my passion will always be within Rocket League as well. Having so much experience from the past in so many different situations and events, I still feel like I can contribute towards teams. I've been working individually with a few players here and there in the off season, which has been exciting. So we'll see what that looks like going into next year. But I've also been doing a few of the things with other games as well. I've been working a little bit in CS, a little bit in COD as well. So we'll sort of see what happens. I've always been a big sort of CS fan at heart. I definitely want to get into the CS scene and that's been a big interest, but I definitely think I'll still have a foot in the door in Rocket League for sure. Would
you rather coach a team of bronze players in RLCS or a team of pros in a random game you've never played before?
I would say a team of Oh, it's pretty tricky because I've played a lot of games. I would say, you know what? I'd probably say a pair of bronzes.
Let's
I feel
go.
like from a value perspective, I could translate a lot for them and give them, some good skills that I could definitely, translate.
What's one thing OCE Rocket League fans would be surprised to know about you?
Potentially, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I've been to Korea for Taekwondo. Been a black belt for quite a long time now. I don't actively still do Taekwondo, but I still enjoy martial arts and that sort of stuff. I did a little bit with Hunter. So Hunter does UFC. So even at majors, we'd take timeouts in the timeouts, but we'd sort of in the prac room just sort of have a little bit of sparring together, and that elicits a good coach to play relationship, I think.
If you could give one piece of advice to aspiring Rocket League coaches or players in OCE, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to network, and don't be afraid to just reach out. I think that's probably the biggest one that I've had a lot of conversations, especially people listening on Mindclickers, a lot of players, coaches that are scared about the fact of maybe getting rejected. But what's the worst that can happen? You turn your computer off, you go and live your life, right?
Totally agree.
Just taking a shot, and you never know what's going to happen. There's been so many shots where I took, especially my career wouldn't have ever even started if I didn't just shoot a single DM to Dan Bonner back in the day. I could be in a completely different trajectory, not have had so many major worlds EWC experiences. Just don't be afraid to just take a message, even if they don't respond. Maybe they're not ignoring you, maybe they just didn't see it, and that's okay. Just send another one off, send another one to someone else. Just don't be afraid and just shoot your shot.
To wrap things up, I threw in a bunch of random rapid-fire questions and had LBP fire back with the first thing that came to his mind.
Yep.
Early morning grind or late night strategy session?
Early morning grind for sure.
Favorite motivational quote or mantra?
A skilled sailor never sailed a smooth sea.
Music to focus or music to hype up?
Hype up for sure. Give me the hard style.
Let's go. Would you rather always wear socks or never wear socks?
Always with socks. I sleep with socks. Always with socks.
What's your favorite random word to say out loud?
Probably recently the good old Sue, the Suey.
Is there any last words you would like to say before we end this interview?
I think just, as I sort of mentioned earlier, just shoot your shot. Don't be afraid to just reach out. Even for me, if you want to reach out to me, ask me questions for advice or coaching or anything, always free to sort of, shoot a message back. I'll always try my best to respond. So, don't be afraid to reach out.
There you go, guys. We're sending some DMs right now. If you're keen to see more from Lachlan or want to dive deep into the psychological and performance side of competitive esports, make sure to check out Mindclickers.